Thank you, Madam Speaker. After a decade of Liberal mismanagement, describing Canada's immigration system as a tire fire in need of sorely in need of competent management and dramatic reform wouldn't be an exaggeration. And so Conservatives, to show we're a government in waiting, proposed multiple constructive amendments to the immigration components of Bill C-12 in an attempt to improve the legislation and fix Canada's broken immigration system. So here's what we proposed and why we did it. First, the why. Recently, Britain's governing Labour Party proposed drastic, sweeping immigration reforms in response to the ongoing illegal migration / bogus asylum claim crisis that they have in their country. Those who think the situation is better on our side of the pond are profoundly wrong. In fact, between January 2022 and October of this year, the United Kingdom had around 375,000 people enter the country and make asylum claims, representing about 0.5% of their population. But during the same time frame in Canada, we saw nearly 500,000 claims, or roughly 1.2% of our population today. The fact that the Liberals also paired the surge in illegal migration and bogus asylum claims with allowing record levels of temporary foreign worker and foreign study permits is extra problematic. This is an incredibly serious situation which has strained Canada's public health care system and many other taxpayer-funded social programs past their breaking point. It's made housing unaffordable, caused a youth jobs crisis, and led to a heavier reliance on social programs. It's also begun to tear apart Canada's social fabric, just as it has in the UK. The volume of people the Liberals have allowed to enter Canada has also made security screening difficult. A recent explosive news story claimed that there are, at a minimum, hundreds of people in Canada with links to a state-sponsored terrorist organization. All of this has led to a precipitous drop, very concerningly, in support for immigration among the Canadian public. And this must change. If that's the why, then this is the how. Conservatives proposed a series of substantive reforms to address these issues, presented as amendments to Bill C-12 during its clause-by-clause review at committee. I want to thank my colleagues Miguel Ryson, Andrew Evans, and Chloe Clifford for working literally endless hours until 1 a.m. on a Friday a couple of weeks ago, with me over 6 months to develop nearly 40 substantive amendments that, taken in combination, present one of the most substantive sets of immigration policy reforms seen in decades. Given the bill's scope, Bill C-12, our amendments had two objectives. The first was to truly fix Canada's broken asylum system. Once an efficient and compassionate means for Canada to welcome and protect the world's most vulnerable and truly persecuted persons, in the last decade, the system has morphed into a backdoor, lucrative means for illegal migrants who likely wouldn't have otherwise had a pathway to permanent residency in Canada to skip the line and stay here. The evidence of this is overwhelming. Canada's asylum backlog has exploded from fewer than 10,000 claims in 2015 to nearly 300,000 today under the Liberals due to their foolish #WelcomeToCanada and open border policies. So we all remember the #WelcomeToCanada tweet in 2017. We all remember the Roxham Road border crossing. We all remember the government lifting the visa requirement on Mexico with no plan to stop illegal border or bogus asylum claims. And here we are today with a broken asylum system and a loss of faith in Canada's immigration system. Unfortunately, the immigration measures in Liberal Bill C-12 failed to substantively address these problems. Committee witnesses testified that the system changes Bill C-12 proposed are half measures, certain to face immediate court challenges that will further clog an already overburdened justice system instead of curbing their abuse. In effect, the Liberals are offloading their illegal migration mess onto strained courts and past the next election cycle. Committee testimony exposed further flaws untouched by Bill C-12. It failed to disincentivize people from coming to Canada to make bogus claims. For example, rejected asylum claimants have the right to appeal to a judge. While those cases work their way slowly through our clogged courts, they continue to receive full health care, housing, and social benefits. The pedantic and loophole-ridden process for appealing a bogus claim and removing bogus claimants from Canada also begets system abuse and needs reform, which C-12 as written did not provide. The asylum and deportation system also urgently requires greater accountability and transparency. It needs to be far easier for MPs to get the data they need in these areas in order to hold the government to account. To fix these issues, Conservatives attempted to amend Bill C-12 to undertake the following system changes. removing the ability of migrants with failed asylum claims to claim any federal social benefits beyond emergency health care, disallowing asylum claims to be made by nationals of or by those arriving in Canada having transited through a G7 or EU country, modernizing security requirements, requiring educational institutions who accept foreign students to share the cost of any bogus asylum claims made by foreign students they welcome to Canada, requiring that claims made by migrants who return to their home country while their claim is pending be abandoned, rejecting claims made after a claimant is found to have lied to an officer, placing the onus on a claimant to prove that they have made their claim in a timely manner, not the government, requiring asylum claimants arriving in Canada to immediately provide on the record their full grounds for seeking protection, preventing the later use of unscrupulous lawyers to game the system, creating a new, transparent, and clear reporting requirement for the government to disclose the amount of federal benefits received by asylum claimants, updating the content of the annual report to Parliament, and introducing merit-based appointments at the Immigration and Refugee Board to better consider the provinces and to include more board members with law enforcement experience. The second objective of our amendments was to strengthen Canada's border security vis-a-vis non-citizen criminals. Bill C-12 purports to strengthen Canada's border security, but it leaves gaping holes for non-citizens convicted of an indictable offence in Canada, such as sexual assault, to avoid deportation penalties. For a non-citizen, our laws and practices state that staying in Canada is a privilege, not a right. Non-citizens who are convicted of an indictable offence like sexual assault in Canada should face deportation, and to be effective, those deportations should be carried out in an expeditious manner, which currently they are not. Recent reports show that the Liberals have lost track of nearly 600 non-citizen convicted criminals scheduled for deportations, and that there are thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of deportations that should have been carried out long ago, but haven't been. To fix these issues, Conservatives attempted to constructively amend C-12 and make the following changes to strengthen our borders. Clarify the definition of serious criminality under the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act to be conviction by an indictable offence or a hybrid offence where the Crown proceeded with an indictable charge. Preventing non-citizens ordered removed from blocking deportation by barring repeat pre-removal risk assessments unless substantive new evidence of changed circumstances was presented. Modernizing the time period and processes related to the enforcement of removal orders. It's deeply disappointing that the Liberals opposed most of our amendments, which I suspect they will have to work into legislation in the near future anyways. They missed an opportunity to immediately fix the system. That said, I want to thank colleagues in the Bloc Québécois, particularly the members from Lac-Saint-Jean and Beauharnois, Salaberry, Solange, Huntington, for working in good faith with us to pass close to half of our amendments. Then, however, when the bill was reported back to the House, the Liberals initiated procedures to try to gut many of the proposals that passed. However, in spite of their best efforts, I'm pleased to report that several still remain in the bill. And it is my understanding that after negotiations, the government intends to support these amendments that remain in the bill today in order to receive our collective support for the bill. This is possible because Bill C-12 included some supportable, but in need of amendment, components of Bill C-2 that exclude the non-supportable parts. These Conservative amendments included one which would see a pending asylum claim deemed abandoned if a claimant returned to the country they were fleeing from. This is a no-brainer. I would just like to say that Conservatives will support the clarifying amendment from the government on this matter. Other Conservative amendments that remain in the bill, including new substantive or quarterly reporting requirements and new processes for terminating bogus asylum claims. Finally, Conservatives also successfully amended Bill C-12 to better constrict and make transparent the extraordinary powers in Part 7 that would allow officials to mass change, extend, or cancel immigration documents. This amendment should give recourse to committee witnesses who raised concerns about the lack of clarity on how these powers should be used and how the government should be held to account after. Additionally, thanks to a Conservative amendment, use of these powers now require a substantive reporting requirement to Parliament each time the powers are used. Conservatives also amended the bill to prevent the Liberals from using powers to turn temporary residents into permanent residents en masse. We wouldn't want that to happen. It's my understanding that the amendment I am presenting today and speaking to now to ensure Part 7 powers cannot be used to mass extend temporary work visas or foreign student permits will also be supported by the government. Colleagues, in a minority parliament means the government has to work with the opposition to develop legislation. I'm proud to say that we forced them to do something that resembled work. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Windsor West and Castro-Dundas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Following the member's speech, I'm trying to understand what it is that the Conservative Party actually stands for. In her speech, she starts with anti-immigration conspiracy theories, which undoubtedly will be used to grift and fundraise. Then she blames immigrants for destroying Canada's social fabric, which frankly is straight up racist. Then she goes into some MAGA theory talking points about immigrants and migrants. And this rhetoric is damaging. It's damaging to our democracy. It's damaging to Canadians. Just last month, we had anti-immigration rallies in Hamilton, which were roundly denounced by Hamilton leaders, as they should be. So my question is, the member from Oklahoma representing Canadians or just the MAGA White House?
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
I am pleased to report to my colleague that he will be voting in favour of many of our amendments. I'm sure he'll enjoy that, and I'll enjoy watching him while he does it. Thank you.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. These changes represent what we often see here in this House. People are far too sensitive when it comes to immigration, as we saw in the recent discussion. The Bloc Québécois has brought up the Roxham Road and asylum seekers at many points. We know these asylum seekers have created enormous pressure on Quebec, and the federal government has refused to pay its fair share. Now, under C-12, we see that the federal government has finally accepted our arguments, at least in part, but the damage has been done. There are people out there who think that any criticism of immigration is racism. Could my colleague speak to this sensitiveness?
My colleague is exactly right. What we've seen from the Liberals over the last 10 years, including that incomprehensible tirade from a backbench Liberal member who I just dunked on, is that the Liberals have lost the fact that just by calling things racist and not addressing real problems that Canadians have, that whole process is what has undermined Canadian pluralism. One of the things that I am very excited about in Canada is that rather than in the UK, where we see people starting to blame immigrants for the problems that previous governments and the current government there had in terms of bringing too many people into too fast, Canadians are saying, no. That's not where the finger should be pointed. It should be pointed at the Liberal government. So I've been pleased to see Canadians reject the vitriol that we just heard from a backbencher who I think will remain a backbencher for some time, and actually work. I would encourage, I'm sure that, while I have the opportunity, Madam Speaker, I would encourage my colleague in good faith across the way, do something that resembles work here. We just worked together with the government, with the Bloc Québécois, and we amended a bill to make it better. That is how you earn respect in this place, and you earn the respect of your constituents. It's not by doing stuff like that in the House. So I want to thank my colleague from the Bloc Québécois, from Jonquière, for raising that really relevant question. I think that's where the debate on immigration in Canada is going to go. I would also encourage the government to undertake some substantive reform and to perhaps limit some of the disappointing rhetoric that we saw from their members tonight. Thank you.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do understand, and I was watching in committee, that there was collaboration between the Bloc and the Conservative Party, but I'm not unhappy that those amendments have been removed. I agree that process should be more open, there should be a conversation, but I was deeply unhappy with the member for Calgary Nose Hill's amendments to restrict access to medical care for people who are in this country, not under deportation orders, awaiting their fate to be decided, who could then be told that they could only get access to medical care if their life was at risk. As I understand the amendment, as I recall it from close to the midnight hour, I thought that really wasn't my country and how we treat people who are in need of medical assistance.
Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
I disagree with the member. Somebody who has made an asylum claim and it's bogus, they should not receive federal benefits. I think it's somebody who doesn't have a right to be in the country shouldn't have better access to care than a Canadian senior who's paid their way here. It's that shift in thinking that needs to happen to restore order and sanity of the fairness. So no, my colleague's wrong. Most Canadians think she's wrong. And we should be undertaking legislation that fixes the system, not perpetuates system abuse. Thank you.